The Thompson Twins are like something we have never seen before. It's really hard to think of twins that are this good at basketball. We have seen twins that are both good at basketball in the past, but never anything to this extent. Where both are top 5 picks and worthy of those top 5 picks, both are generational type of athletes, both are smart in terms of feel for the game, both have legit all-star upside, both have great potential on both ends of the floor. It's just really hard to come up with words to describe this. It doesn't make sense. Let's start with Ausar Thompson, who was the 4th overall pick to the Houston Rockets. I actually had Ausar in a 3A, 3B ranking on my board alongside Brandon Miller. Miller being the high floor with relatively high ceiling half, and Ausar being the high ceiling with a relatively high floor half. Ausar was the best pure athlete in this draft in my opinion, as well as the best pure athlete I've ever evaluated among draft prospects since 2016. He has a combination of athletic traits that are truly one of one. I don't think many, if any, basketball athletes in recent memory have this level of vertical athleticism. His vertical pop and explosion are among the best we have ever seen. His vertical range is also among the best we have ever seen. This combination is what makes it feel like a man floats in mid-air whenever he jumps, and does things that are truly unique as a basketball athlete. Combine that with elite body control and flexibility, unreal quickness and burst, and blazing fast open floor speed, and you get an athlete that's closer to an anime character than a basketball player. I've compared his movement skills and athleticism to that of Akame from Akame Ga Kill, but for those who don't watch anime, a perfect way to describe him as an athlete is if a Jedi was playing basketball. His athleticism alone makes him a special athlete, but you combine that with his skills, and that's what makes him a special basketball prospect. Ausar Thompson has legit primary playmaking tools. He has unreal vision. He has unreal feel for the game. He is creative as a passer. And what separates him from other playmakers is how he utilizes his athleticism and playmaking. His athleticism is truly one of one. And it really just allows him to do things as a playmaker that only he can do. He makes incredible reads in mid-air and at full speed. He has the height at 6'7" to see things that most normal-sized point guards can't. Playmaking wise, he does remind me a bit of Ja Morant, because Ja can also make those unreal reads in mid-air. And also, Ja is one of the best playmakers in basketball. It honestly is an underrated part of his game somehow. But the difference between those two as playmakers is that Ausar is more in control and isn't as reckless as a player as Ja, in my opinion. I think Ausar will grow into an elite rim pressure threat and defender. He has all the tools to do those things, and he has showcased the ability as a rim pressure threat and defender. But it still is somewhat a work in progress. I wouldn't say that he is great at those things right now, but he also isn't bad at those things either. This needs more polish in those areas. Ausar also has work to do in terms of his shooting ability, which is always the question with him. He isn't unwilling as a shooter, which does give him a baseline that makes me confident in him, but he does need to improve in this area. He is aware of these flaws. He has shown to be a high work ethic guy, so I do have confidence he can improve on his flaws, which is a good sign. And I would not guarantee he becomes a good shooter, but I do think he can reach a level of league average shooter with continued growth and development. At worst, you're getting a 6'7" freak athlete playmaker that can defend and run the floor in transition, and also play a bit off the ball. At best, you are getting a legit franchise player. Someone that can be the primary playmaker, rim pressure threat, and elite defender on your team. Now, this all will be contingent on him reaching league average levels of shooting and continue to progress in the areas that he has a lot of potential in, which isn't a guarantee, but I am very optimistic about the idea of Ausar being a really good player, and if the shooting gets to anything above league average, which again is far from a guarantee, but if he does it, we could be talking about one of the two best players from this draft class, and maybe even the best player from this draft class. Now, Ausar is a bit different from Amen. He's still a freak athlete in his own right, one of the 5 best from this draft class, but he's not quite the athlete that Amen is, which speaks more to how generational of a pure athlete Amen is than it does to anything about Ausar as an athlete. Ausar isn't quite as twitchy as Amen or as quick as Amen, and he isn't quite the vertical athlete Amen is, in my opinion. But he still is incredible in these areas, and it still feels like you're watching something from an anime rather than any real-life athlete that plays basketball, even if it isn't quite what Amen is. Now, Ausar makes up for being slightly behind Amen in terms of vertical athleticism and quickness with his strength. Ausar is the stronger of the two. He's also probably a little bit bigger than Amen. I do think the strength advantage does make Ausar a better rim pressure threat and finisher, but I do think that both of them have immense potential in this area regardless. That doesn't really say much about Amen's potential as a rim pressure threat. I think he's going to be really in that area. But Ausar is the one that's better, and I do think there is a real possibility that Ausar ends up being the better rim pressure threat and finisher long term. Now, Ausar isn't the playmaker that Amen is, and on top of Amen being a slightly better athlete, I do think that combination of being that athlete and also being a primary upside player compared to Ausar, who isn't really a primary upside kind of player, I think that's why I believe Amen has the higher ceiling and is probably slightly better as a prospect. I do think that Ausar is a good playmaker. I just don't think he has the primary playmaking upside like Amen. And I do think that Ausar is more fit to be a connecting playmaker. He has good vision and accuracy. He's decently creative, but isn't creative or doesn't quite have the feel that Amen has as a playmaker, but he does make good reads. I would say of the playmakers in the league, his role and sort of the way he operates as a playmaker and how that projects to the NBA, it reminds me a bit of Marcus Smart as a playmaker, someone that can handle primary reps if needed, but thrives more in that connecting playmaking role. He's also a better off-ball offensive player than Amen, in my opinion. He's always been the better off-ball player because he's had to play next to Amen, who's been the primary playmaker on the team. And the way I look at it is, Amen projects to be a John Morant type playmaker, while Ausar projects to be an Andre Iguodala, Marcus Smart type playmaker. And I actually don't hate the comparison to Andre Iguodala in general for Ausar. Iguodala at his best was an all-star and all-defense type player, and I think Ausar can be that as well. In fact, I would say that Ausar is the better defensive player compared to his twin. His feel on defense is higher, he's stronger and a bit more physical, and seems a bit more locked in than Amen. And like basically like everything I've been saying, it doesn't take away from Amen's potential on that end of the floor, because Amen does have immense potential on defense, but Ausar just feels a bit more tactically sound and a bit more high feel of a defender. Like Amen though, Ausar does need to work on his jumper. He is further along and more willing than Amen as a shooter in games. Funny enough, I actually heard somebody say that Amen would actually outshoot Ausar in practice, like pretty consistently outshoot Ausar. But Ausar is the better shooter in games, which is what really matters. The form needs work, like with Amen. But like Amen, Ausar is aware of his flaws and has the work ethic to improve on those flaws. It's not a guarantee he does improve, only time will tell, but I am even more optimistic about Ausar reaching league average shooting levels than I am with Amen. Overall, I think Ausar projects to be a high-level two-way connecting wing, one that has a clear impact on winning basketball, and also someone who can put up numbers, but doesn't have to in order to be a clear-cut positive on the court, like we saw with Andre Iguodala and like we saw with Marcus Smart. The Thompson Twins on the surface are similar players, tall freak athlete guard wings with a ton of upside on both ends of the floor, but the more you look into it, the more you realize the differences. Amen is the higher ceiling of the two with a relatively high floor. Ausar is the higher floor of the two with a relatively high ceiling. Amen has primary creation intangibles as an on-ball playmaker, while also having the tools to play off-ball in lineups. Ausar has connecting intangibles as an off-ball player, while having the tools to play on the ball if needed. Amen is further along in terms of primary upside and playmaking. Ausar is further along in terms of strength, shooting, and defense. I think both of them are going to be great NBA players. They just have way too many things you can't teach. To the point it's hard to believe that they will fail in the NBA. Athleticism that truly feels fictional. Feel for the game that's off the charts for both of them. And they just do things that don't make sense. In a good way. I think Amen will be the better of the two. I think he has the higher ceiling as a primary playmaker, and finding primary playmakers with this level of athleticism and that are this big is rare. But Ausar is also going to be a really good player, and I wouldn't be shocked if Ausar ends up being better. Both of them need to work on their jumper. It's not a guarantee that area does get better, but if they do improve, they are going to be among the best players in the league. If Ausar becomes a league average shooter, and I think he has potential to be a bit more than that, we could be talking about one of the best two-way wings in the league. If Amen becomes a league average shooter, we could be talking about one of the 10 to 15 best players in the league one day. One that will be all-NBA good and maybe even an MVP candidate. Only time will tell with all of this, but I'm excited to see them play in the NBA, regardless of the outcome. But that is the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, notify whenever I release a video. I make videos for basketball all the time, and liking and subscribing are the two best ways to help me out in the YouTube algorithm. Helps people find my videos, so in turn, help the channel grow so I can make more content for you guys in the future. Let's try to get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. Let me know what you think about the Thompson Twins in the comment section below. Which one do you think will have the better NBA career? But with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.